Good afternoon, evening, and morning to all of our football subscribers. My name is Derek. This, of course, is Taylor in front of me across on the computer. Taylor, how you doing?
Not too shabby. Long day,
Not too
but
shabby?
yeah, looking to bang out some football information and prepare everybody for Sunday.
It's the eve of the
Yes.
most important information display, I guess, with coaching display. I don't know
Yeah.
how you want to place the wording on it, but
I
we're
mean,
about to
data.
see. Right. We're about to find out if anything we've expected is true, if nothing of what we expected is true, or if it's somewhere in the middle, which is more than likely the case.
Right.
But we'll start off our second episode of the Fantasy Flyer with some news and some notes. As always, we have to get down to the bottom of the news. Before we really break into the games, we're going to preview the games today. We're going to go over a quick review of Thursday night and what was, I think, a little bit of a surprising result to
For
the
sure.
Bills-Rams game. And then we are going to go through the entire slate, and we're going to play our very first game of host v. host. So, Taylor, I'm going to let you take away with the news. Go ahead and catch me up a little bit here, all right?
Sure. So we have more on Zach Wilson. I mean, I didn't think he was gonna start, but it looks like at least 4 weeks he'll be out. So Jets will be interesting with Flacco starting, who is very much on the decline in my opinion, and I think that would be most people's opinion.
Yeah, I'm with
Um,
it. Can't
yeah,
disagree.
I mean, we'll get into that game more. So moving on, just kind of a nice to know, Emmanuel Sanders joins the Broncos to retire as a Bronco. So just,
Salute. Enjoy
yes,
retirement.
right. Brian Robinson, obviously that terrible shooting incident is off crutches, according to Ron Rivera. So that's good to hear. Apparently where he was shot is not anything that's going to hopefully affect him long term. It seems like hopefully once he's back at it, he should be same old Brian Robinson.
It's kind of interesting that happened. It's horrible that it did happen, but man, what a freight train he's got to be. You get shot in your knee, I believe it was, and he just happened to miss a lot of important. Well, I mean, he got shot a few times, not just his knee, but
Right.
For him to bounce back rather quickly and be off crutches is pretty impressive in my opinion. So just
Yeah.
gonna throw that out. He's going to be something that Gibson's going to have to deal with in Washington.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, we'll talk about that some more. I have some thoughts on that. Yeah. So Jackson and the Ravens, Jackson put a deadline of what, Friday night, and they could not come to any sort of agreement. So the long-term deal is
And
they're done
what you
negotiations. So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't go deep into it. Now, is this his last year on his contract? This is his upcoming as his last year, or is he in his next to last?
I
Because I
think
heard
this is
about
his
it and I was like,
fourth.
so he's looking for the extension now. Because that's if he's a free agent next year, that is massive.
Right.
I did not delve into it. Honestly, it kind of caught me by surprise when it started to pop up at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, so if he was drafted in 2018, this would be his
This would
fourth
be 4.
season. So yeah, if they don't sign that fifth year option, then yeah, that's going to be insane to have him on the open market.
Good heavens. Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett beware. Um, that's the only thing you could say about that. All right, well, we'll work a little bit more on that. We'll go into a few little quick injuries. What you got? Rondell Moore is out. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ruled out. So it's Kyler Murray versus everyone else.
Yeah, pretty much.
Zach Ertz is questionable too, or could play on a snap count, which, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm going to throw to Max Williams, who all of a sudden has 2 other people to compete with.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Something that caught me by surprise, Shaq Leonard was ruled out. I mean, not surprised because he was hurt, but it different. It changes that game.
Right. Yeah, for sure. The other side of the ball there definitely gets a bump.
Yeah, I feel like so I haven't rechecked the over under, and we'll get there for the Indiana Houston game, but I feel like that went up a couple points from when I wrote it down yesterday because I think he was ruled out yesterday last night after I did it. So I'm sure the betting lines went up.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin is a game time decision.
Yeah, and honestly, he's on my bench even if he's active. Just it's with his injury, if he plays, I don't know if I'm going to take the chance week 1.
See, now he's on my dynasty team, and I got him starting right now, so you're making me think things.
I mean, I guess dynasty is a little bit of a different story, right? Because
Well, I'm not DFSing him. We'll get to
yeah,
that too.
for
We'll get
sure.
to
That
our
yeah,
values and chalks later because
yeah,
I have so many other options that I think I can go to. We'll talk about that.
yeah,
Kenneth Walker was ruled out with a hernia. I saw
yeah,
something earlier that he was still said he was questionable, but that might have been a day old. Either way, Rashad Penny bump.
yeah.
Alan Lazard ankle. He is doubtful. We'll talk more about that a little later because that is a very interesting football game coming up. Anything else we got from news and notes? Did I miss anything?
George Kittle with his groin is questionable, hasn't practiced all week, so that aspect of the injury sort of notification is a little concerning. I mean, he was obviously hurt off and on last year, the year before, he was basically out the entire year. I don't know if I'm mixing up years, but pretty sure that's how it was. So
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a little more injury prone over the last, let's say in his career, last 25 or 30 games than we'd probably like. But I think this week specifically, I don't think the Bears would scare me into,
Hmm.
super changing my decision with him or out or in.
Right. Yeah,
It's not
honestly,
something.
like from San Francisco's standpoint, maybe give him the week off. If, I think they have enough pieces to make it work without him this week against the Bears.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we'll talk back about that. So yeah, that is the end of news and notes and injuries. Give a like to the video if you're watching this on YouTube. Give a subscribe to the channel. By the way, like the Fantasy Flyer, we're just getting started, but we want to go over all of your fantasy stuff where the fantasy meets the field. Please like and subscribe. If you're watching on there, and if you're watching or listening on Apple Podcast, give us a like there too. We could use that if they even do that still. All right, so we'll move on to the Thursday night review, I guess. I want to put this in your court to start off, Taylor, because I have so many. I mean, I'm going to start rubbing my head already because I got a headache from how this game. So I said on Tuesday's show, my prediction was 34-24 in favor of the Bills, and I did not pick the winner wrong. I just picked the incorrect score for the losing team. Stafford did not. I mean, Matthew Gofford is more like it.
Yeah, right.
It's bad. And we saw a couple of the folks on our 53-man dynasty team really losing their head over pieces. Actually, one person really who was losing their head over two pieces who just did not perform. Those being Cam Akers and
Allen Robinson.
Robinson.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson. Thank you. I don't know why I said Aaron. But yeah, your thoughts on the entire game? What you noticed? What might be different?
Yeah, I mean, uh, Allen looked awesome. He had two interceptions, one which was not his fault, kind of bobbled by Isaiah McKenzie, and then the other one got picked off on an attempt to Crowder. But I think he had 26 completions on like 31 throws or something, like very, very good completion percentage.
Including
Um,
his first 10. He was
yeah,
10 for 10.
yeah. So that was good to see, not unexpected. I guess the interesting pieces there, McKenzie and Crowder kind of in a timeshare for that slot role. Maybe they're still trying to figure it out, or maybe that's what they're planning to do this year. I know McKenzie's a fast dude, but he's a smaller guy. I mean, Crowder's not the biggest guy, but he's got the experience. So maybe it's they paid Crowder some decent money. So yeah, maybe they split that role and nobody gets banged up and works well for them. I mean, Obviously, Diggs and Gabriel Davis played really well. So nothing to be ashamed of there. So they have those two guys rolling well, and Singletary. This was interesting. So Singletary was pretty heavily used in the first half and was playing well. Poor Cooks fumbled on his first attempt, and then Moss was basically more heavily used the second half, and I don't know why that was because he was not nearly as effective as Singletary.
He, I noticed the same thing. I was sitting there and I'm watching this and I go, Singletary wasn't effective to begin with. I know he had 8 for 46 or 8 for 48 on the ground, which sounds like it's very productive. I think his longest was like 13 or 14 now. So it's kind of really more 7 for like 30. And it just gets worse as it goes down. I don't know where Zach Moss came from. He did not. I mean, he was, let me look it up. I think he was like 6 carries for, I'm going to say less than 20 yards. I'll just leave it at that.
That sounds right. I think he was basically like 6 carries and somewhere around 6 catches, and both catches and rushing both. So total, he was like 40. So 20 and 20 for each. I'm rounding, but
Right.
yeah,
So
he was not efficient.
He wasn't really, and I don't know if they're just trying to make it seem like maybe they're not giving away their hand that Singletary can run. I mean, this wasn't a game where running was going to be the deciding factor anyway for them. I mean, we saw that Wagner was very effective in his first game, Bobby Wagner for the Rams. And Aaron Donald was consistently putting pressure on Josh Allen, at least in the first, I would say really the first half of the game. He was consistently making Josh, and that led to the 2 interceptions, which came fairly early on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't understand the running attack. James Cook, I feel bad for the guy for fumbling on his first, but it only goes up from here, right?
Yeah, hopefully. I'm sure he
only...
chatted with his brother after the game, and he said some good. I don't know. I can only imagine. It's like, yeah, I fumbled on my X carry because he probably remembers exactly when it happened, and like obviously he's
absolutely.
fine. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that hopefully that'll help him keep his confidence and do significantly better throughout the season.
I would hope so. For his sake, I mean, you get drafted with that draft capital, and you have such high expectations. That's
right.
Not like he's probably starting in most dynasty leagues or especially in DFS, but you can see that he has potential coming out of college, and then that's his first game. It's a little bit of a letdown, so give him some time. Josh Allen, I got the stats up: 26 for 31, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, including a 53-yarder to Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, he was wide open.
Yeah, Gabe Davis, 4 for 88, also had a touchdown. Crowder was 3 for 28. McKenzie 2 for 19 with a touchdown. And let us not forget, he also had a gender reveal.
I did not. I didn't hear that.
Yes. So his when he scored the touchdown, it's hard to hear on the game camera, but he screams, "It's a boy." To the camera, and that is for his sister who was watching at home. And I don't know. I mean, that would have been if they watched the game and he didn't score a touchdown, how is he going to get that across?
Yeah, right.
But good for him. It worked out that way. Also, cool. I want to point out, Devin Singletary had 2 catches for 14 yards. So I think he was 2 for 3. So interesting to see. And you know who I don't see had a reception? James Cook.
Yeah, so just the 1 carry.
Yeah, so a little curveball there. It's almost like Zach Moss took what you'd think James Cook was going to do. But all in all, I think you basically saw what you expected out of the Bills. Other side of the football, the Rams look like they got more problems than I don't even have a good analogy, I should say. Almost a eulogy.
Eulogy.
Yeah, well, that's not far from what happened either.
Yeah, right.
But it was the offensive line couldn't stop a nosebleed. Like Von Miller had 2 sacks. I mean, he had 3 tackles for loss, including the 2 sacks. He was there all night, making problems for Stafford. And to be fair, Stafford was really looking for Cooper Kupp a lot more than he probably should have, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp had 15 catches or 15 targets. Like him and Stafford, their connection, that was like the only thing that was going well for that team. Allen Robinson had one catch for 12 yards and another target in the end zone at the end of the game.
Mhm.
Higbee had like 11 targets or catches. Probably
Yeah, he had
targets,
five
5 catches.
for
Yeah.
39.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully, I guess they didn't play any preseason together, Stafford and Allen Robinson. So hopefully we see that trending differently throughout the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, I think you might want to jump ship on him, which is unfortunate because I was actually kind of high on him being, I won't say a sleeper, but sneaky because people were out on him after how last year went.
Well, you still, I don't mean to cut you off
No, go
there,
ahead.
but I feel like one game, we can't base this off one
Right.
game.
Yeah.
Especially given what you just said about them not playing together in the preseason. I think it's huge that you see these two find some mojo, so to speak, because you're going to run into some teams that are going to, I mean, they'll double and triple team Cooper Kupp, and you're going to have, if not Higbee, you're going to have Allen Robinson. And 2 targets over an entire game is not going to, I mean, it makes it easy for secondaries. It really does. Well, let's see. It's the middle of the third quarter, and Cooper Kupp has 14 targets, and Allen Robinson has 1. So who do you think he's going to throw it to? If even if it's play action, you're not biting on it. You're going to go straight to Cooper Kupp. You're going to throw, a safety overhead, and he's going to come down and clamp, and that's just easy football at that point. And Jordan Poyer had that interception, and at that point, I looked at it and I was like, well, you knew. You knew, like, he's not someone that you can sleep on, and look what happened. He went ahead and had a great interception as far as I'm concerned from Stafford.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just a lot of pieces they got to figure out. I'm at a loss really for them.
I mean, they had at least 3 turnovers from the Bills, and they did not capitalize on, I don't think, any of them. The times that they scored were not due to those turnovers. I could be wrong, but yeah, they had the
They failed on
opportunity
2 of
to,
them at least.
okay. Yeah, in the first half they had the opportunity to be up by like 14, and they came out the first half 10-10, right? And then the Bills just walked away with it in the second half.
Yeah, they did not impress.
You suck.
Yeah, that's right, Stewie. Stewie says it. He's 100% correct. So it was not good. The other thing that is, and we'll only talk about this briefly before we move on to our previews, but Cam Akers versus Darrell Henderson. We talked about this on Tuesday as well. We thought it'd be more 50-50. Sean McVay came out after the game and said, well, Cam, in more or less paraphrasing, said, well, Cam didn't capitalize on his opportunities.
Right.
And Darrell
He had
Henderson
0
did.
yards.
Right. Yeah. He had 3 carries for 0 yards, which is a whopping 0 average.
Yeah.
So Darrell Henderson, 13 carries, 47 yards. Also had 5 catches for 26, which is, I mean, he was a stout fantasy running back from what wasn't expected to be an opportunity in this game. I mean, you're looking at, 15, roughly almost 14, 15 points.
Yeah.
On Darrell Henderson. So in PPR formats anyway. So do you think that's going to go forward, or do you think it's literally, you think Sean McVay means what he says and we'll see, we'll keep running 50-50 and maybe next game it'll be Cam?
I think that for Cam's sake, I want to say that McVay seems like he wants to take a hot hand approach. But it's tough to say. I mean, he had 3 carries. You didn't see much to really know if he still has it or if the injury has taken away that burst. So yeah, I don't know that I can make a call just from this game, but usage-wise, it was not promising. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Sounds good. Going to be interesting to see how the Rams go forward. Rams upcoming schedule next 3 games: Falcons, Cardinals, 49ers. A little bit of hope next week for the
Yeah, I was gonna say
Falcons.
Falcons next week. That'll be, if we see something there, then maybe there's some light.
Right. There's some good. The secondary there is not promising at all. So
Yeah.
has some upside, but it's not what I would call a stout secondary. So I think, especially for talking about Allen Robinson, that's going to be a chance for him to stand out. And then of course you'll see what Cam Akers and Henderson work in the backfield. So an interesting outcome to Thursday Night Football, all in all. But we are going to move on to the main slate, the main event, Sunday and Sunday slate. So we'll take off with the preview.
I'm giddy. This is exciting.
It's exciting because I explained to you in the pre-show, I got things going on tomorrow until like mid-afternoon, and I'm gonna end up glued to my phone while I do them because it's just gonna be like, oh, who's scoring here? Who's doing this? Does my lineup scoring? Is this gonna be great? So we'll start off with the 1:00 slate: New Orleans versus Atlanta. Let me restart that sentence. New Orleans is favored by 5.5 points. The over-under is 43 as of last night. Plus or minus probably a point there. Probably hasn't changed a lot. A little fun fact to know before we get into it. New Orleans has, against Atlanta, they won the last game of last season on January 9th versus Atlanta, and they start this season versus Atlanta. So Atlanta leads the regular season series 53-52 all time, but New Orleans is 22-10 since 2006. So how do you break down this game? Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota? Is it wide receivers and youth versus experience and secondary? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of the team experience. I mean, Winston is obviously his second year with the team, or did he play 1 year behind Breeze? And then obviously last year he was hurt. So he's got some experience, at least with the system, which obviously changed a bit when Peyton, that's his name, right? Yeah, when he left. It's late. So I think
it is.
I think the system there and the experience of him, Kamara, Troutman, obviously younger guy, but been in the system. I think that versus Mariota, first year with the team, first time starting in 2 years. London, the rookie, Brian Edwards, first year with the team. I mean, you got Pitts and Cordero Patterson, second year with the team, but I mean, as we know, this is a quarterback heavy league in terms of that's where you're getting your, I mean, that's who's driving the team more or less, right? So Mariota has not played with Pitts, not played with Patterson in a regular season game. So whether they've been on the team for a couple of years, I don't see that as having a huge benefit because the like cohesion is just it's not there. So you see a lot more experience and people in the system on the New Orleans side, and I think that plus coaching is just, I don't really see Atlanta having much of a chance here.
I'm with you. The New Orleans secondary, I mean, you're Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu, Bradley Roby. Granted, it's a quarterback who can run, but Kyle Pitts is there. Drake London is questionable for tomorrow. Right. We didn't mention that in the injury notes. I think he will play. I don't see anything that says to the contrary. I'm sure he probably wants to, especially considering the opposite side of the ball is Chris Olave, who he got drafted right in front of.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for both of them to kind of put on a show tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's a battle of the first 2 picks of 2015. Winston went 1, Mariota went 2, but there's 2 different quarterback plays here. Can the deep ball be what gets Winston through? Because it doesn't matter how bad or ineffective probably being the better word, but it doesn't matter how ineffective your secondary is if you are underthrowing somebody by 10 yards, or if you're completely missing passes and you turn the ball over on, Hail Marys or whatever. He's got the arm, but he has to have the accuracy.
Right, which has always been his thing.
Right. That's literally been Winston's. I think it's going to be a little closer at the beginning of the game, but the run game for Atlanta is not stellar. We know Cordell Patterson can do these. I don't even want to call him screen run, but he can. I call it dual threat, I guess. Running back, wide receiver, and if he can get effective with that and keep Atlanta close for the first half. But Olave and Jarvis Landry, and if Michael Thomas plays, which again I haven't heard anything, he hasn't. But he may not. I don't even think if he doesn't play that it matters much. I think this game is pretty set. The over-under is 43. I'm going under, simply because I think tempo is going to play something. But I have New Orleans winning by over 10. My prediction is New Orleans 24, Atlanta 13. So that's my go with it.
Okay. Yeah, I can get behind that. Yeah, I mean, Thomas being questionable is definitely interesting. I mean, the guy hasn't played in 2 years, so we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, if he's out there, him, Olave, Troutman, that's a solid receiving core, and then Kamara's a good receiver, good runner.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't see, like I said, how they don't win this game. And I think to your point, it'll be a decent gap, but maybe a slow start for both teams. I mean, Winston has always been serviceable for fantasy purposes, but you don't want to watch it. You just want to see the results on your scoreboard.
I mean, you want to watch it when he throws 5 touchdowns.
Right.
And he's in there for 375 yards, and he makes the wide receivers look amazing, and the offensive line can stop, everything, including the wrath of God. It's but when that doesn't happen, it's when it gets entertaining, but maybe painful at the same time.
Yeah.
So game 2. Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati at the 1 o'clock. Cincinnati 6.5 point favorites. The over/under is 44.3. Pittsburgh only scored 20 total points between their 2 meetings versus Cincinnati last year, 10 points in each. But Cincinnati, they've changed, but they haven't. Yeah, you've seen Lyle Collins has moved in, and seems to be probably the only weakness was the offensive line for Cincinnati. Obviously, we don't need to talk about the 3 wide receivers. You can throw a cinder block at them and they'll catch it. On the other side, Pittsburgh made a couple. We know about the changes offensively. We know about Mitch Trubisky. We know about the inclusion of George Pickens, who looks like he's going to be their 3rd wide receiver, and I don't know why he wouldn't be behind Deontay Johnson and Claypool.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes down to how those 2 match up, more or less offensively versus defense, just in point scoring. The O-line, if the O-line can hold for Cincinnati, my opinion is that Cincinnati takes off with this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Pittsburgh, as always, has started to set themselves up nicely, but there's always those growing pains. I mean, George, I always mix it up. Okay, so Kenny Pickett, George Pickens.
The pick
George,
and pick combo.
yeah, right. George Pickens, very talented guy, fell further than he probably should have because of some off-field concerns. So we'll have to see what happens there if that does become an issue. But let's assume it doesn't. Let's assume Pittsburgh can keep those things from happening, and if they do, I think that him and Deontay are going to be a solid wide receiving duo. I mean, Claypool's no slouch either, but he had an interesting year last year where I wouldn't say he was all that effective. He had some good games here and there, but um, not somebody I went after this year in any of my drafts.
No, same here.
Yeah. So, and Freiermuth had a very, very solid rookie year.
Don't sleep on the move.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, you got a new quarterback, which, I mean, Ben was not, he was limited in his last season, we'll say. So hopefully Trubisky will at least be that. Um, so
I
yeah,
want
I
to know.
mean, yeah, I think that Pittsburgh overall will have a better year and will give their fans some hope going into the future here. But yeah, I think Cincinnati by far takes this game. I mean, they, they went to the Super Bowl. So,
Yeah, they did. And
um,
it's you got two good running backs. You know, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris has a really good breakout. Uh, Again, which I said he had a good season last year. He's up for another breakout. You can see 1,500 yards if he stays healthy.
yeah,
Um, but I think I agree with you. I think Cincinnati is a little too, we'll say, offensive, and it's just, to be honest with you, Minka Fitzpatrick and I mean the entire secondary is not bad. But you can't guard three wide receivers, and even if you do, then they'll start kicking it out to Mixon, and he'll run for 15 or catch and run for 15. So
yeah,
I got Cincinnati up winning 35-17 on the over. I do think that Cincinnati will have if they don't get out to a big lead, Pittsburgh can, with the weapons, potentially keep up with them. I don't see it happening, in my opinion. So Pittsburgh youth, Cincinnati defense. Here's the matchup. That's the matchup in my book. So,
all right.
my real quick, our value versus chalk for that game. I have a couple of DFS value. DFS specifically, I'm going to talk DraftKings tonight. George Pickens is 4,100. If anything goes wrong, or you have Von Bell, Eli Apple in the secondary, for Cincinnati, I just see Pickens as having, especially at 41, he doesn't need to have many points for you to hit value there. You're looking at probably 3 or 4 catches and he's there. So
Yeah.
and you can't ignore Jamar Chase as your chalk on that. So I just say, if you're gonna combine them in a lineup, I wouldn't even be opposed to it at a 40. Will end up being over 50 if I'm right, but that's the gamble. If I'm right, that's fantasy, right?
All right. And I mean, that's a good point. Like, if you find a high scoring game, there's no issue. In fact, you should go after both sides of the ball. If it's good, like if both teams have no defense, go after both sides of the ball. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. I also had Pickens, but to throw out another value name, and actually maybe he's not as much of a value as I think. I haven't actually looked at the prices, but I would throw out Freiermuth as a value there.
4,200 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'd consider it a
So
value.
if you're looking, and like we'll talk about one of my other favorite chalks in a short time. I already told you who that is, but we'll get there for that. I don't hate this game as being one to target if you're looking for 2 and 3 player stacks on DFS. I think I would, real quick, let me check Trubisky's cost for DraftKings. And again, I'm just basing this off DraftKings. I know that there is another one out there, FanDuel,
Yeah.
but just running off of, that is not the game that I want. He's $5,000.
Oh,
So a 5,041, you got plenty of room for, if you're going Trubisky and Pickens, and even Deontay Johnson isn't a horrible, if you want to stack Trubisky and Deontay Johnson, you're still looking at Johnson 6,000. So you're looking at 11 through 2 spots. You can definitely go for Jamar Chase at that point and just really roll, because I think this game might be higher scoring than a lot of folks are giving it credit for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the chalk and value. We didn't do that for the first game. If we want to jump back real quick.
It's okay. I got a good one for that one too. So you go right ahead.
All right. I mean, I think the chalk for me is very obviously Kamara. And then I would say for my value, maybe Troutman.
Ooh, interesting take. Interesting take.
What's the price on Olave?
Olave is 4,500. He is my value pick at 4,500. He's actually $100 less than Jarvis Landry. So, and I think if Michael Thomas is out, Olave, if he's in, I'm probably gonna go with Landry. And I just think I don't know why, but I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a more consciousness from Atlanta to be on the outside, and I think Jarvis is going to end up doing a little better in the slot. That's just my take on it. I could be very wrong on that. Again, we're kind of finding out tomorrow, right? We're finding out a lot about all these pieces. So, but I would take Olave at 4,500.
That's what's so exciting about week one is if you think you have more info on some of these players, you might be able to hit big. But after week one, we get a lot more information and the prices drastically change.
Absolutely. My chalk for that Atlanta-New Orleans game is Jameis Winston, because he's $5,300. And Kamara is 7,600. Not to say that that's bad chalk, but I think for 7 to 75, there's other players I could go for. So that's the difference in my standing. So, real quick, what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to bounce right back with some more Fantasy Flyer. You guys stay tuned. It's time for us to hit the water cooler, okay? We'll be right back.
See you in a bit.
All right, welcome back to the Fantasy Flyer. We're going to continue on with our preview of Sunday's matchups. We're going to bring it to San Francisco versus Chicago. Over under at 40.5 points. San Francisco is favored by 6.5, and justifiably so. Nothing about this game looks pretty for Chicago, and I think it's a great warm-up for Trey Lance, in my opinion. How are you feeling about this matchup? Juicy.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm very excited as a Trey Lance dynasty owner. Finally get to really see what he's all about. I mean, we got to see a couple games last season and they weren't too bad, but yeah, I'm definitely excited about that. I mean, it's interesting. I'm assuming the NFL did this on purpose, but two rookies in their sophomore season head to head for the first game. That's pretty exciting.
Although, albeit two very different experience levels.
Yes, yes.
You can see Justin Fields, who will have, he'll need some help from somebody.
He is part of a team.
That's true. Yes. Well. Okay, rub that one in. But there's no real, like, one of our dynasty owners, the other dynasty owners in our league, was saying something about Cole Kmet, and at first I was like, man, this doesn't look like his season. And then I look at this roster of who he's throwing to, and it's Darnell Mooney, and then who? I literally sound like an owl.
Yeah.
Because there's just nobody. There's just nobody there. So Cole Kmet isn't. He could very well have a very good game tomorrow. I'm going to be more interested to see how Justin Fields, if they can switch up structured running plays. Obviously, Montgomery in the backfield is. He's not anyone you can sleep on. We'll say that. He's definitely earned his keep in Chicago. So
yeah.
To see David, I don't love this matchup for Chicago, though. Look at who you're going against as far as San Francisco. They just don't. Last year, you could have easily said they were the third best team in the NFC West. They made the playoffs.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs. Not only that, they went pretty. They did pretty well. They disappointed Aaron Rodgers, who's been San Francisco's best player in the postseason. They disappointed Aaron Rodgers again, and I don't know. You can't say anything bad about this team. And now to have Trey Lance even taking over the helm, like I said, I think this is more of a practice game for him. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, Shanahan being the head coach, very great head coach, awesome mind for the game. So he obviously has designs for Debo, running, catching. He has this weird liking towards a particular type of running back, in this case Elijah Mitchell, which nobody expected last year. And he's going to design plays for Trey Lance, to his strengths, which he can be a great runner. He does have a good arm. Whatever he's been seeing in the preseason practices, he's got a plan for him, and I just don't see how Chicago. I hate to grin and smile at them in a bad way that like this is not going to go well for them. But
Yeah, you don't want to put him down. But
yeah. But yeah, I mean, to your point, and that's why I said Justin Fields is part of a team. Mooney is. I mean, Montgomery is good. Mooney is the only guy that has any sort of pass catching history with him, really. Cole Kmet, I feel like finished last year pretty decently, and I was targeting him like crazy in drafts, and I think other people were as well because I didn't really get him in many. But yeah, I don't see how he's not the number 2 pass catching option on this team.
Yeah, they're Velus Jones, who's their rookie. He is not playing tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see anyone. I feel like there was Willie Snead is out, and then they're down to like Tajay Sharp. I think that's who's back there. I don't know. Like I said, it could be the ball boy for all I know, because it doesn't look like there's nothing promising about the offense of the Bears right now. Without, I mean, Justin Fields in a structured run play there. Okay, I'll take it. I don't see them scoring more than a touchdown. I really don't in this entire game. The San Francisco's defense has always been attack. I know they're missing some pieces, but they're not missing the big ones. Fred Warner's still there. Fred Warner's the big one, I think, in my opinion, especially if you're going to, there's a small chance that Shanahan and the entire really San Francisco, they just put Fred Warner and say guard the middle. If you see Kmet come and do a curl route, he's yours.
Yeah.
Make Justin Fields throw it to Darnell Mooney 40 yards down the field. Make him do it, because they might succeed once, and that might be your touchdown. So that's my take on it. I have San Francisco winning 23-10. Also, completely irrelevant fact, but it fits what I'm about to tell you. Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the NFL draft, Brock Purdy, actually made San Francisco's roster. So I just little small asterisk for that. My value in chalk, we've been talking about that. My value pick, it's actually going to be Danny Gray for San Francisco. He's 3,200. He saw some good preseason action. Saw some good targets. Wasn't ineffective, I think, as a wide receiver. Granted, again, we're not talking the big league, so to speak, but for Brandon Ayuk's price, which I think is somewhere in the low fives, I would rather take 3,200 Danny Gray. And again, that's a flyer. Due to game script, my chalk is Elijah Mitchell. I think you're going to see him carry this ball quite a lot, especially between the middle end of the third quarter and whatever they have of the fourth. just kill the game clock, because I really think it's going to be like 20-7 at that point, and you just don't need Trey Lance to throw the ball.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. I see game script putting Elijah Mitchell with like probably 25 carries and 120 yards, or 100 to 120 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, Debo's too expensive to be chalk, but I think he's gonna have a good game. Danny Gray's interesting. I have Juwan Jennings playing more than him, so we'll see. But Danny
Okay.
Gray, very, very talented. I mean, they took him in the 3rd round. Jennings was a 7th rounder. So yeah, I mean, let's see. Trying to be different here. I think for chalk, maybe I'll go Trey Lance, and then for value, let's go Komet. And then
Okay.
to answer your question, Equanimous St. Brown and Byron Pringle are the other guys on the Bears wide receiving, which like what?
Ugh. I forgot Equanimous St. Brown went there, which okay, Byron Pringle. I see him now. I still wouldn't.
No.
Oh my
And they
God.
also have Dante Pettis, which was with San Francisco last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. But
And a former Giant before that. Just not.
right.
I don't. There's
Not
nothing
interested in
about
any
this.
of them.
Also, no. To correct myself, Velus Jones is doubtful. He has not been ruled out. Willie Snead has been ruled out.
Okay.
So add that and correct myself. Still doesn't change my assessment. Moving on. Just because that's the way it's got to go. Philadelphia and Detroit. This is the first game that really interests me on this slate. Obviously, the Pittsburgh-Cincinnati is going to be, probably a little bit more of a score fest, but I don't think they'll be close. This is the first game that isn't necessarily close, but I think there's some interesting pieces of each team here.
Mhm.
Just to run through my quick notes, Detroit was next to last. They were 31st in the league in giving up yards to running backs. Well, fantasy points to running backs, but generally that means yards from scrimmage. I don't know how to really break down the difference in these teams other than it's Jared Goff not being able to do what Jalen Hurts can do.
Right.
And it's between both teams, 5 or 6 wide receivers who they all can catch, they all can run. They've all pretty much solidified a spot on the team somewhere between A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I'll throw Dallas Goedert in there. And then on the other side, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have T.J. Hawkinson, who's a better tight end than his numbers have really shown.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where to really go with this other than the fact that I think Philadelphia is going to win, but I don't think it's going to be the landslide that a lot of folks think it will be.
Yeah. I think to your point, Detroit will surprise. I do, and I haven't been throwing out scores, but I do have Philadelphia doing. I think they're going to have a decent gap. I would say in the realm of like 7 plus or minus. So I don't know that I might have it as close as you do, but going back to your point about Detroit and their defense against the run game, that is going to be interesting from a Philadelphia standpoint because Sanders has, and this is coming from somebody who had him in Dynasty, he's been frustrating. He has shown
Very.
he's shown a lot of talent, and then he disappears,
He's not.
or and I won't even say he gets injured. He does have some injury issues, but he's been, I feel like,
Relatively healthy.
75% plus of the games that he's been around for, he's been there. So like Gainwell has shown he's a very good pass catching option, and Boston Scott has shown he can get the job done when it needs to. So I don't know what they're going to do from a running standpoint. Like, is it still Miles Sanders? I don't know that we can say yes.
It did It did come out yesterday that Miles Sanders is expected to be the starter, but like you said, there's no consistency to what that means.
Right.
He can have the first four, almost like what we were talking about earlier with Cam Akers. You had the couple and you didn't do anything. Well, now Boston, go ahead and do it. And all of a sudden he's got 12 carries and 53 yards and a touchdown somewhere in there. Or Kenneth Gainwell could be sprinkled in. It's tough to say that this situation with the run game isn't going to change a whole lot, or it's going to seem a lot like last year, because regardless of who carries that ball out of the backfield, Jalen Hurts can run.
I was just gonna say
Jalen Hurts can move.
Yeah.
If you want to if nothing else, you want to compare between Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff for quarterbacks and leading their team, go ahead and try and cover, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and throw who you can at Dallas Goedert, because Jalen Hurts will toast you for 8 to 12, and then you've got another first down. And it's not, if his arm is anything better. I mean, there's a huge gap between these guys in ADP. Hurts is the quarterback 6, I believe, going as high as the quarterback 3, going, right behind Patrick Mahomes and generally Lamar Jackson, although Justin Herbert's fortunate. Anyway.
Yeah.
But he's been the quarterback 5, 6, and then Jared Goff's like quarterback 24.
Right.
Just like the ADP is like 150. It's almost an entire draft apart.
Yeah.
I think 198. Yeah, 198 is what I have on an ADP for Goff. So nobody wants Goff, and that's okay. On a receiving point, though, DJ Chark just showed up, and we saw what DJ Chark can do 2 years ago. I think he complements very well to a team that's young and growing as a receiving core.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what's going to fix Jared Goff. You can probably say no. We saw what happened in Los Angeles, and that didn't work, and bye-bye. And, now Stafford comes in and leads them to a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
But the O-lines are both very good for this team, which is why my chalk is still DeAndre Swift. He's one of those who's around Alvin Kamara, but I think just due to game script and the fact that that's something he flourishes, just point blank. He had a really great year last year, and I just don't see how he's a chalk for me. My value, however, is Miles Sanders, and it's you can say price-based because he's $5,400. But knowing that this run game is still going to be, it's probably going to be forefront, in my opinion. Not to say that A.J. Brown won't have 100 yards. Not to say that Devontae Smith won't have 7 catches, or Dallas Goedert's going to catch a touchdown on 3 catches, and that'll probably all happen. But I see this as being, especially if the game script separates itself as much as I have it at 31-17 Philadelphia. I have a little farther apart than I think maybe my first introduction to the game indicated, but if they can keep it close, that would probably be the only way that changes, in my opinion. I say Miles Sanders, and you're not going to see Jalen Hurts go running wild at that point. I just don't think you're going to. It's week 1. He doesn't need to prove he can run. He needs to prove he can throw. And by that point, if it gets far enough away, that's done. So I got 31-17 Philadelphia. I don't the over-under is 48.5. Philadelphia is favored by 5, which I didn't mention. But I think that's low. I think 5 is low for what Philadelphia can do. But I also think, and I'm right there at 48.5. I'm at 48. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. I think
final thoughts on this game from you.
Yeah, I think I would also go. I would go over. Goff, we've been putting him down. He's not a bad quarterback. He's just not elite. He's not great. But if he's on, he's not going to be bad. And to your point, they have Chark, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who finished the year amazingly. Swift is a great pass catcher out of the back. Hawkinson, and they have Josh Reynolds, who was, I mean, he hasn't done it, but he was a high pick, and he's not bad. So I guess the only thing I would say is Jamal Williams is going to be part of this, so that takes a little bit away from Swift. But Swift is
a fair point.
incredible talent, so he'll probably make the most of his opportunities as he has. And then, yeah, from a chalk standpoint, I think I'm going to go Hurts because of that running capability. Maybe he's probably high price, but I like him. I went after him in my drafts. And then value, um, this is kind of out there, but maybe Boston Scott. I could see him being a goal line guy. Um, and so he might get that touchdown.
Spoiler alert, not to sidetrack too much. The final days of our 53-man fantasy free agency, I tried very hard to get Boston Scott. And that's part of my reasoning is I think Kenny Gainwell came out of not nowhere, but he established himself without much of a path last year. I think Boston Scott still, if Miles Sanders doesn't get it done, Boston Scott's right there. So I agree with that. That's a good chalk play. I will take that. So moving on to our next game, New England and Miami. Miami favored 3.5 points. The over-under is at 46. I put this as Tua and his new toys versus Mac and his coach, really. I mean, Bill Belichick is the greatest coach I think we've ever seen in the NFL, and I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb to say that. The one thing I will immediately differentiate from probably many is that I think Jalen Waddle is the hidden piece here. It's going to be interesting to see how an ineffective defense in preseason is changed at regular season, because there is something that Bill Belichick is not showing teams.
That's my hope.
It's almost evident. Yeah, well, it's almost evident because you know he looked at the schedule. And he looked at the schedule and he went, I got to face Miami in week 1. And I got to face off against Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. And then they got Chase Edmonds, who's a young, very capable running back. And they're deep at running back because there's Raheem Mostert back there. Oh, and then there's this Tua guy who doesn't run quite as much as we expected. But Tyreek Hill's over here saying that he can throw better than Mahomes. How do I stop that? So if you're going to throw it all at Hill, it's going to be Waddle, and I think you can't not throw it at Hill. I just don't think you can. So that's my first glance at this game, is that Waddle is the hidden piece for Miami.
Yeah. I completely agree. They being New England has always been known to take away your top option. And to your point, how is that not Tyreek Hill? So now what do you do with Waddle, who had an incredible rookie year? Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, New England's backfield isn't terrible. They have some talent back there. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's top notch, but I'll be interested to see how that plays out and what the game plan is there. One real quick, the biggest thing that concerns me is just who is calling the offensive plays? How is that going to work? Where's the cohesion? That question, I don't think that's been answered, or maybe that's intentional to your point. Belichick playing games, I don't know, but that's funky to me.
It's not. There's a good misleading. Preseason's a great way to find out things and not give away your hand. Like we said, I've said it, I think 3 times, and I'll say it a 4th right now for this show. Tomorrow we're finding out a lot about what's behind the curtain, what's been happening in my right hand while this left hand's been dancing and putting on a show.
Yeah.
So, and this is probably the first game that comes to mind when I think about that phrase is what has Belichick done? What can Tua, who hasn't really played a lot, we haven't seen Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle's been missing. There's so much that both sides are going to come out and try and surprise the other with, I think.
Yeah.
It's not easy for me to call it. Now, to counter my point, Mac is not inefficient. Never really has been. And they're not afraid to run the ball. We know that as well. We saw, that ice game last year against the Bills. He threw the ball twice or 3 times or something, and they ran it every other time. Damian Harris is obviously, I won't say obviously. Damian Harris is probably the one in New England. Ramondre Stevenson is the 2 in that case. And then you basically run into the wide receiver core that is Jacoby Meyer, Devontae Parker. You have Kendrick Bourne hiding back there. Capable.
Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, there's some vets mixed with some, I guess, halfway youth. We'll say they're not rookies by any means, but Tyquan Thornton is ruled out, so there's not going to be that exposure really. But the team isn't. My game script in my head goes: Miami scores first, no matter who gets the coin flip. I think Miami's going to score first, and it's going to be kind of one of these. And it never really gets out of hand, but it never, it never really turns into a head-to-head either, I got 28-24 Miami. And to all of the Tua can throw better than Mahomes. No, he can't. Tua actually has a higher completion percentage than Patrick Mahomes in his career.
Interesting.
So 66.2 to 66.1. And Mahomes has thrown 1,600 more passes, but the percentages. So there's something to it. I want to see if Tua can get to Tyreek Hill, if he doesn't underthrow, if his accuracy's improved, and if it's not Tyreek Hill because he's got 3 people around him, well then look on the other side of the field because Jalen Waddles I think is going to be open a lot more, and I think that's going to be the key to his success, not only tomorrow but going well into the midseason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have much more to add there. I think you hit a lot of it. I guess I'll add that Montgomery might be a piece in New England, sort of filling that James. Wow, drawing a blank, but their James White role. Yeah. Yes. Wow, that's sad for me. But yes, filling that James.
Well, it's
White
sad
role.
He retired because honestly, he was. He was a spicy running back. That's what I'll call it.
Yeah.
He was a spicy running back. My chalk is Jalen Waddle. You heard me talk about it. No surprises. My value is, I wrote Ramondre Stevenson because I think this is going to come down to his goal line for, at 5,500. He's not only going to see goal line. We know that. But I think he can take a little more goal line versus maybe Emmanuel Ogbah, things like that. I don't know. That's my opinion on it. Again, I'm not really stuck on that one, but that's who I wrote down. So
yeah. And also Montgomery did have an injury in the last preseason game. So if Montgomery's not playing, Stevenson might be their 3rd down guy in addition to whatever sort of back and forth they have with Harris and Stevenson. I think for value, actually, real quick, do you have the price for Chase Edmonds? I don't know if that would be considered
that is a
value.
great. I can find that out in 2 seconds.
All right.
Chase Edmonds is 5,200 on DraftKings.
Okay. I don't. That's borderline. I wouldn't necessarily say that's value. But I'll throw that out there as a name to look for because he's supposed to be the lead back there. And he's shown he can do it. Apart from maybe not being the most durable guy, and he can catch the ball. Man, I'm gonna go. This is tough because New England spreads it too much. Let's try. I'm trying to do something different than you, but it's tough.
Do you want
Let's
another?
Go with,
I can give you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, all right. Jacoby Myers is 4,300. He's questionable. He's the second of the second wide receiver. It appears. If he is out, Kendrick Bourne is 4,200.
That's what I was gonna say. Okay, we'll do that. Yeah, if Myers is out, Bourne is a decent value play.
And the $100 difference is
yeah
mostly negligible.
Yeah,
so
I guess you could say
one or the other.
Right, one or the other for value. And then chalk. Give me Tua. I feel like he's not too highly priced.
Let me find out in 2 seconds. 5,700.
Yeah, yeah.
He is more expensive than Mac Jones. He is cheaper than quarterbacks such as Trey Lance, Derek Carr, and Ryan Tannehill.
Tannehill, that's interesting.
So, yes,
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I mean,
57. He's actually the same price as Tannehill, I should say.
okay.
5,700.
Yeah,
So,
to say somebody other than Waddle, I'll go with Tua. Mac Jones is
okay.
going to be too much of a game manager. I don't see him going out of hand here in terms of scoring highly.
I am with that. I don't see that being. And honestly, I think he has a better chance of throwing an interception just versus the defenses. I don't know why. It's just in my head. I see him as being a little more out of control in that aspect. Moving along, Jets versus the Ravens. I do not have an over and under. It's probably not very good. This game looks like, we kind of touched on this on Tuesday. We touched on it earlier in the news. The Ravens are going to win this. We don't have to. We don't have to really. If they don't, it's because Michael Carter or Breece Hall or somebody just runs the absolute wheels off it, or Joe Flacco happens to just start hitting everybody on slant routes and is Johnny on the spot. It is interesting to come out. There is Robert Saleh came out and said yesterday that and I quote, Michael Carter is the heartbeat of this team.
Interesting.
That was beyond. That was eye-opening. How does he use Michael Carter? Is he gonna play third down and pass? Is he gonna play some second downs? Is Breece Hall gonna get baby walked into this role? Maybe. There's so many. That is such a curveball to fantasy owners, for those like myself who drafted Breece Hall in dynasty leagues.
Yeah.
Who are gonna probably depend on Breece Hall down the road. We'll find out how it breaks down tomorrow, but the Ravens look good, and now you throw that curveball. I don't have much else to add other than this Jets offense looks a little scary, with Joe Flacco without.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing to hear. Maybe they have Carter as the third down guy for pass catching. Obviously he has that extra year of experience, the system, or maybe not. Who's that? Is it the same head coach as last year?
Yeah.
Saleh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still Saleh.
Okay. But Hall, such a high draft pick, a very, very good talent, could handle all three downs. Unless he's still getting up to speed and maybe his blocking is not where they want it to be. I don't know. That sounds funky.
His production in preseason, being a fantasy owner of him in our dynasty league, I kept an eye a little bit on his production. It wasn't stellar, but I'm not sure if that is indicative of anything. I'm not sure. I didn't watch the games. Preseason, you can't judge a whole season on it. So, or a whole week on it, or you can't prejudge based on preseason. But
yeah,
it didn't look like for his carries and his yardage average that he was there all the time. There were a couple runs I saw on highlights that were, impressive. Finding open space in between defenders, making defenders miss on misdirections. Always been apparently pretty decent back in college for it. But to hear that from Michael Carter, it's like, so if you kind of knew that he was going to be decent, you do know you just drafted that guy, like this Breece Hall guy at pick 36.
Yeah.
Where you could have not and probably done other stuff. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I have the Ravens winning 35-19. That's an odd number. at 19.
Damn. Is that the highest scoring game you have so far? Overall?
35-19. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And pulling up going back to, I think looks like the over under, at least from what I'm seeing on ESPN, is 44. And I see two things for the line here, but it looks like maybe it opened at 4.5 and now it's at 6.5 in favor of the Ravens, obviously.
That's got to be the difference between. Well, I don't know. That could be Wilson. That's not Wilson. Wilson's really kind of been out since midweek. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know if maybe it's the. Oh, you know what? It could be the contract. Lamar. If Lamar isn't signing, they might. I mean, he doesn't need to prove anything, so I guess that's a complete stab in the dark. But, yeah, that's interesting. 6.5 though, and you said 44.
Mm-hmm.
So they got the game at 28 to. Well, they got 28-16, roughly. So that's not. Yeah, I'm not far off at 35. That's a difference is touchdown.
Yeah. So this is also, and I hate to keep making these side comments, but on our lads, they have Michael Carter ahead of Breece Hall on the depth chart.
Ooh, the plot thickens.
So that is very interesting.
Thickens. I don't know. That makes me like we're let's see, 13 hours away from kickoff roughly. It is 12:22 Eastern time right now. Just crossed into Sunday morning, and I have to completely rethink my running backs. Maybe I'll just play both. Maybe I'll just run with that. But okay, moving along to our next game. We're going to do this one a little quick because we got to take another break. Jacksonville and Washington, we commented on this earlier. This doesn't really interest either of us as a game to watch. We will, however, look at the stats, laugh at them, and move along with our lives tomorrow. Carson Wentz versus Trevor Lawrence. We talked about it on Tuesday. Trevor Lawrence is not a top 10 quarterback.
Right.
Carson Wentz isn't a top 10 quarterback when the top 10 quarterbacks aren't playing. So, I mean, this is just rough. Terry McLaurin is not going to be – I don't think he's a wide receiver. He's probably a wide receiver 2 now. But to say top 12 is even in the realm this season, especially with Jahan Dotson there, no, not in my opinion. Trevor Lawrence has some new tools, and Washington has a 2.5-point favorite on this, the over-under 44. I actually have the upset versus that. I'm picking Jacksonville to win 23-20. And I even wrote a little side note. I think that Travis Etienne has over 80 yards.
Okay. I really like that upset. I think, and this is probably where you're coming from, I could see Washington just struggling here to not necessarily score in general, but just to really
move the ball.
Yeah, this is first game with Wentz, and I'm nervous for them. I mean, that being said, like Wentz might be the better quarterback they've had in the past 5+ years, outside of who got hurt last year. I'd
argue with Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke had some good games, man.
He is decent.
He's a sleeper. People slept on Taylor Heineke for a few games.
For sure.
To be honest.
Yeah. But who's the Harvard guy that was supposed to start last year?
Harvard guy. Oh, see, this is Washington. Oh, for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. He if he had played all season, I might have said he's borderline better than Wentz, but he's like a Winston guy. He chucks it, doesn't give a crap, gonna throw interceptions, gonna have great games, gonna have terrible games.
Yeah,
anyways.
And he was 6 days older than dirt, so good for him. Had a good career, but and no disrespect to him at all.
Right.
But he played a full career and made a good living out of it. So I don't have anything other than that. The Jags are 4-29 over their last 2 seasons. And that's saying something because I think they're going to win. I don't see Washington stopping this team a whole heck of a lot, but I do see Jacksonville stopping themselves a whole heck of a lot, if that makes any sense. So I do see 23-20 being the outcome, and
that is a disgusting act.
That's just horrible. It's going to be a horrible game to watch. Joe Buck said it best right there. So that's just the absolute pinnacle. It's a disgusting act. It's going to be a disgusting act. Do not watch that football game until we know more. Maybe in a couple weeks we'll watch that.
Yeah.
All right, just to preview what we got. We got to take a break right here. We got 2, 3, 4 more games, and then we're going to debut the host v. host for this season, which is going to be me versus Taylor. We'll go a little bit more into it, but that's going to be on the other side of the commercial break. Time to head back to the water cooler, maybe get a towel. We're going to have the coach yell at us in the locker room. Whatever's going to happen, we'll be right back on the Fantasy Flyer.
We'll see you in a bit.